Hello, and welcome to the Amy Edwards Show. I'm your host, Amy Edwards, and here we are again, ready to up-level our lives, ready to have conversations that take us to the next level. I'm so stoked that you're here. So thank you so much for showing up for yourself. Yay. So we have an epic guest today, as usual, right? I mean, there are so many incredible people in the world with so many incredible stories, and all we have to do is just keep opening ourselves up, and they just keep appearing in our lives, like today's guest, Julie Korioth. Julie, I'm so glad you're here. You're the founder and CEO of Speak as One, which is a mental health company that is helping us all through stories and resources and subscription boxes, which I think is a really cool idea. And I can't wait to hear all about it. You're also a mother to 2 kids. You've been through divorce. You've been through your own mental health struggles. And so let's get to talking about that. And you're just a bright human being, like a bright light human being. Like, you have a really good energy. You have really just beautiful, shiny eyes. And I don't know, we just met, and I'm already really feeling it with you. I'm like, are we friends already? I think so.
I do feel that way. Yeah. Thank you for having me, Amy.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, I'm
absolutely
excited about this because I hadn't heard of Speak as One before. And, I think let's talk a little bit about how you even came up with that title and what that means to you.
Yeah. Oh, great question. So Speak as One came about because the company is the foundation was on stories. I was going through my own challenging time. I was isolating.
When was this?
This was before COVID.
Yeah, you're like, okay. I was already in it.
I was already in it. Yeah. And just giving you a quick background on the title, I started out calling the company Mend. And then I realized I just didn't know if that fit, because it's really about people speaking out around mental health, because if you or somebody you know will go through it. And
100%.
Yes. And that's where we all are as one. It doesn't matter, how much money you have. It doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. None of that matters. We as one need to start speaking about mental health. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we came up with the title.
And you have a background in counseling as well. You have a master's in counseling.
I do.
And so you were already tuned into this conversation. Did you start studying that because of your own stuff, or what is that about?
Amy, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty common, right?
Oh, yeah, I feel like it is. But yeah, looking back at it now, I know that when I was in kindergarten, I had anxiety, and I didn't know what those feelings were back then. Mental health wasn't talked about. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Isn't it funny too? Because you probably thought that's normal. That's how people feel.
Well, I didn't. I thought that there was something wrong with me.
You did?
Yes.
Wow. Because I know that I've had things that I didn't even realize, like ruminations, which I've talked a lot about on this show, and ruminating like before I go to bed and stuff. I remember doing that from a young age, and I thought that everybody did that. So I didn't even understand that it was like something that people didn't do.
That's so interesting, because I kind of already had at that time started isolating myself, thinking that no one else was going through these things, that everybody else had this like joyful, happy life.
Oh, I can understand that.
And
yes, I get that totally.
Yeah. And I was the only one that had these feelings, and then depression set in fairly early on too. And, no one wants to be around the sad girl. So you learn through society to put on a happy face and to mask all of that. And so I did that my entire life, really.
Yeah. And I think I can really relate to that too, because I think that I thought everybody else just had it figured out better, like, oh, this is part of how we are. And then everybody else has got it figured out. So yeah. And you look around and it's confusing.
It's very confusing, especially as, I think as girls, when we then turn into teenagers, and you're just also trying to figure out how your body is changing. And then, there's society around your body image. And
totally.
I found out that I didn't have an eating disorder, but I had what was called disordered eating. So that was, along with depression and anxiety, I'm feeling all these negative ways about my body. And I have for a long time. That's healed as well recently. But it was a long journey. My college experience was not what I expected it to be. So, trauma follows trauma. Like, if you kind of know trauma as you're growing up, I feel like it just you keep going towards that same path, not knowing any better. And so,
and plus I think they say that it can actually feel so familiar
Yeah.
that that's where you want to be, because you're like, well, at least I know what's going on here,
Right.
even though you don't really know.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, my college experience, I was in a very abusive relationship, and physically, mentally, and even sexually. And
Wow.
so, yes, it took me a few years to finally get out of that relationship, and I did. And moved to Austin, and I went to Texas State, and that was a huge life change for me. In some ways, I felt like Austin kind of saved me. I loved the city the moment I got here. You know, it was like,
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up north of Houston.
Okay.
And then I went to Texas Tech for a couple of years. But when I came to Austin for the Horde Fest, I was like,
That's awesome.
I'm like, get me to that place. So yeah, I broke up with him, and I came here, and and started a new life. And so that's when I really started learning more about therapy. I needed to heal from that. And I started going to a therapist every now and then. But, I never did it consistently. I was one of those people that felt like, okay, I'm better, so let's move on. And I always worked. I mean, I started babysitting at 9. I did everything around my house to earn money. As soon as I was 16, I got a job to not think and to not feel. And even in college, I went to school, I worked. And so when I got here, I was taking 18 hours of class, and then I would go and I'd work as much as I could, anything not to really address the issue. So I went to a therapist and started to feel better, but I never really dealt with those deep-seated issues. And I'm telling you that for a reason, because you'll understand more later. But so then I decided in my later 20s, I was just very interested in it. And honestly, I always had been in some weird way. Like I was always trying to understand people. I was never a girl that really understood cliques, like I wanted to kind of know and like everybody. And I just would observe those things. And when people were being treated poorly, it really affected me. Like I wanted to fight for, people and change that. So I think I kind of always had it in me, and I didn't know. And so that's why going into counseling was really important to me, because I thought, well, if this can help others, then this would be amazing.
Yeah.
But still never realizing that I really needed
That's so common,
I really
right?
needed the help.
That's like the cliche, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The doctor who really needs the medicine or whatever.
Exactly. So yeah, I got my master's in counseling at St. Edward's, and it was great. And then I met my ex-husband, and
yeah. And so you proceeded to practice, or what were you doing?
I did not proceed to practice. I graduated I did not get my LPC.
Okay.
And in a lot of ways, it didn't feel like, once I went through the program, I realized I don't want to be the person sitting down telling people what's wrong with them. Like that didn't feel right to me, because there's nothing wrong with us as people, right? There's challenges, and we're trying to figure them out, and we all have different coping mechanisms, and we all have some sort of form of addiction in some way, really. And so it just didn't feel right to say, oh, this is what's wrong with you, this is how I can fix you. Now, I believe in therapy, don't get me wrong. I just didn't feel like I was the right person to do that. And
it wasn't your path,
no,
right? I mean, we'll look at now. So,
I know, right, yeah. And so, and I immediately met my ex-husband. So we, he had an amphitheater, and I was really involved in that. And so kind of got in the music industry. For a small time. For about 7 years or so. And I did that. And then we had 2 kids. And so.
Well, yeah, because you got really involved with Sims, which is a very important piece of the music puzzle here in Austin that helps provide people with mental health services.
That's right. And so my good friend Haley Cyhawk, she was on the board of Sims, and she's like, Julie, with what you're doing at the amphitheater and your background in counseling, she's like, I think that you would be the perfect fit to be on the board. And so, I was really involved in Sims. That organization has, I wish I had the statistics on the amount of people and music professionals they help, because it's so powerful.
Look it up right now. I can look it up while we're talking.
Yeah.
It's huge. If anybody's not familiar with it, Austin is one of the only communities that has something like this.
Exactly.
And oops, I looked up the Sims video game by accident. This is what happens when you don't have like a simsfoundation.org, everybody. So yeah, and there's Sims Day here in Austin and stuff. So anyway, it's highly recommended. And
It is. Yeah. If you're a music professional, it's not just the musicians, if you're involved in the lighting or the sound here in Austin and surrounding counties, call them. If you're struggling with mental health, they will help.
Yeah, I mean, just in 2019, 12,758 counseling sessions provided to people. That's huge, and they only have their statistics up through 2019. So you can imagine, what they've provided since then too.
Oh.
So I know people that it's provided for. So anyway, that's huge because that shows you a lot of the need that's going on that probably feeds a lot about Speak as One, right?
Absolutely. And it was a lot of the things, with Sims that, it was my own journey. And then just also being involved in that organization, I just kind of really brought everything together with Speak as One. That's
for sure.
True. Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So you have your marriage, then you have your kids, and then you split up. I don't want to gloss over anything that's important though, but here you are, right? Like, and now you're getting a divorce. And I understand that in your bio, it said that it brought up a lot of stuff, unprocessed trauma that you were talking about maybe from college and before.
Yeah, exactly. It did. It was a Pandora's box for sure. And that's why.
Why? What happened?
I can't explain it because we had a very amicable divorce. No hard feelings. There was no traumatic story or anything. But the loss of our marriage, definitely being away from the kids, I was probably a helicopter mom. I would say at the time.
It's okay.
Just
I'm not going to judge you.
Fully involved with everything.
Yeah.
I was making the food, I was doing all the things, and once again trying to do anything to mask feelings.
Yeah,
it was the work ethic.
I think it kind of makes you feel like, oh, I'm involved. Making up for the fact that you're getting a divorce. You know, as if there's a way to make up for that or something. It just is what it is.
Exactly. So I think the loss of everything was so. They rated up there with death. It definitely felt like a death for me. And
you have to grieve these things, and a lot of times we don't give ourselves this space to grieve it because it's not a death, but it is.
It is. Yeah. It's a death. And I think too, for friends on the other side of it, they outside looking in, they think, oh, you're going to be fine. You're this and this and that. But inside, I knew I wasn't fine. Felt like I was dying. And,
wow.
And it brought up these feelings that I felt like I was young again. Like I was living in this fear from a 13-year-old's perspective, which was very interesting because.
What was that?
Knowing what I know now is that a lot of times we react out of our younger parts because that's where we learned those ways of coping is when we're younger. And if we don't learn anything different, we carry those through. But I'd never noticed it like that before. You know what I mean? I'd never noticed
You
it.
had an awareness around it or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it felt different, the energy in my body. And there's a great book called The Body Keeps Score.
The Body Keeps the Score. Yes, I'm reading it. I snail's pace my way through it when I'm not listening to it. And I'm when I'm not listening to a book. So I'm almost done.
Yeah.
I'm very proud. I read just a little every day.
Yeah. Well, and it's a great book that helps you understand that your body can hold on to these memories and we may not even realize that it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had it happen to me. I had it happen just in the last year. And I was like, holy shit, my body's not getting the memo. My spirit and my mind are okay. I can meditate, but I've got this thing sitting here. And it's like, why isn't my body getting the memo? And you can harbor this trauma response.
Yeah.
It's for real.
It interesting? Yeah.
Yeah,
'cause
it's super
sometimes
interesting.
You can feel like everything's okay in your life, but that it's the feeling.
Yeah.
And people carry it in different, areas of their body, but
it's a fascinating book. Highly recommend. So you were having this awareness That's interesting.
Yeah. And it kept growing. And when I didn't have the kids, I was drinking a lot.
I wondered if you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's a common coping.
I was, but it got so scary. A lot of my friends were like, it didn't seem like you were drinking any more than us or what have you. But for some reason, cognitively, everything was affecting me. My memory was going south. I couldn't get a job. I felt totally inadequate.
That's drinking, man.
Yeah.
That'll add up.
It'll add up. And so a few years after my divorce, I decided to stop drinking. I wasn't the parent I wanted to be. And every change I have made in my life has been because of my kids. Because I think as parents, we all want to give our kids something better, right?
Yeah.
And I just couldn't even function. I could do everything that they needed. I could provide them a safe home and food and get them to all the things. But I was living in so much anxiety and panic attacks and fear that I couldn't be a mom.
You were having panic attacks?
Oh, Amy, it got so bad. I remember one time I was picking up my daughter from school, same school she's always gone to, and I'm driving off, and all of a sudden I start having a panic attack, and I pull over, and my friend calls, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "I don't know where I'm at." I didn't know. Same school, and I'm on the side of the road, and I'm like, I don't know where I'm at right now. It's just
so scary.
Overtook my entire body. So this was before I stopped drinking. And then things like that would happen, I would try to go for walks because walks are good for your mental health. And then I'm on the trail and all of a sudden I'm crying, panic attack, can't breathe, trying to find a tree to go hide because I don't want people to see me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was intense. And when I stopped drinking, the panic attacks stopped. I was still having a lot of anxiety and depression. And that's when I kind of started isolating. One, I didn't know how to be around friends anymore. Austin's such a social drinking town. And I still was feeling inadequate with no job. My memory even wasn't coming back. And I just didn't know what was going on. So I ended up finding out later in life that I have a severe learning disability. And
what is it? Wow.
Yeah, it's a visual processing disorder. And so I had 20 different visual processing disorders, all under 20th percentile of my age. So I was basically...
Would anybody even figure this out?
Well, it's interesting. I had a friend, I feel like, the universe or God or whatever it is for you, for me it's God, has ways of putting people in your life to kind of be a vessel to talk about things, right? And I had a friend whose son was diagnosed with this.
Yeah, I totally believe that too, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'd never heard of anything like this before. And I knew that I always struggled in school, which is some of the reasons I think I felt the ways that I did when I was growing up. You know? I was scared to read out loud and
But it wasn't dyslexia.
Nope.
It was
visual
processing disorder.
So like my depth perception, tracking, convergence, divergence, peripheral vision, you name it, everything was totally out of whack.
Wild.
Now, it got worse as I got older. So when you're younger, you come up with these coping mechanisms, right? To get through. And later in life, I just didn't have those study habits or ways that I was still working my brain the way it needed to be.
Oh, interesting.
And then along with the trauma and everything, and after the divorce, I was just when you're under that kind of panic, everything shuts down.
Yeah.
And so it was severe. I mean, I was reading about the age of my daughter,
Oh my gosh.
who was 5 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's wild. So there's this.
You were just like, my brain's not working.
Yeah.
Really?
Right.
I mean,
it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah. And I thought that if I stopped drinking, at least some of this would come back, but it wasn't. It was scary. I thought I had early stages of Alzheimer's or something.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. But there's this great clinic. It's called Optometry Center for Vision Therapy over in Westlake. And I went to therapy for a year, eye therapy.
Eye therapy?
Eye therapy. I've been to all the therapies, Amy.
Gosh. Yeah, including the ones I've never heard of.
Exactly.
Y'all, I have started using higher dose products, and I am such a fan. You know, I don't put anything on this podcast that I am not 100% completely behind. And I have a special discount code for you for all higher dose products. I'm so excited. If you don't know, Higher Dose is a wellness company. They have wellness tech products, they have tools, they have supplements, and they have body care. They have so many things that are hot right now too, that are really biohacking and up-leveling our lives at home, which is really cool. They have an infrared sauna blanket. They have an infrared PEMF mat that I'm so excited to be sharing about soon. One of my favorites though is the red light face mask. It stimulates collagen, it activates glowing skin, reduces fine lines, regenerates cells, and it's soft. It's not like one of the hard plastic ones, so you can kind of move it around on your body, which I've been doing, and I am seeing amazing results. I am absolutely addicted to it. I use it every single night, and I'm using it in conjunction with one of their other products, the Glow Serum. And I'm very picky about what I put on my skin, and I am loving the Glow Serum. It's specially formulated to plump and hydrate and stimulate radiant skin, which that's the goal. They have a ton of other products too. Magnesium ingestibles, magnesium body care, which has a healing oil and a serotonin soap that you can use in your bath, which I've been using too. It boosts your mood, enhances your skin, and deepens your detox, gets you calmed down. Anyway, I'm a fan, so I'm so excited to offer you 15% off using my code MAGIC15. Go to the show notes. You can click through on the link right there, or if you go to Higher Dose, just enter the code MAGIC15 and you'll get 15% off. Higher Dose has been featured in Goop, Glamour, Elle, Vogue, Bazaar, Allure, basically you name it. And there's a reason why. So go check it out. It's at higherdose.com and enter my code MAGIC15 for 15% off. Are you ready to up-level your pleasure practice? I have in mind, and the main things that have helped me are the tools that I've found from Wands. Wands creates luxurious products that encourage us all to honor our body, celebrate our sexuality, and live in pleasure, with more pleasure all the time. One of my favorites, if you listen to this show, then you probably already know, is the Cervix Wand. Wands has trademarked their #1 best-selling glass pleasure wand. It's for vaginal and anal de-armoring, and it's designed for cervical and G-spot stimulation. And let me tell you, it's incredible. It's helped thousands of women become more connected to their bodies and their pleasure, and supports them to heal pelvic pain through self-yoni massage, and helps awaken more pleasure. Just recently, I've ordered the Venus wand, another trademarked wand from Wands, and it's designed to activate and awaken the G-spot and more. Also, don't miss one of their new offerings, which are free bleed blankets that can be used as waterproof intimacy blankets. They have a beautiful selection now available. But take a look around at wands.com, that's WAANDS, because they have a huge selection of incredible items like yoni eggs, crystal pleasure wands in amethyst, black obsidian, anything that your heart desires, and so much more. Check them out at wands.com, that's WAANDS.com, and use my link in the show notes to get 10% off, or simply enter my code Amy Edwards at checkout. Again, that's WAANDS, wands.com.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, like, what do you do in eye therapy?
Oh, it's, so they help you with memorization exercises. They have screens where it'll help you with your depth perception, where you have to track, or tracking screens where
Really?
it'll have, let's say, different dots, and you have to be able to get the dots, and you have to get them in the order that they're processed in, and then also like where they are on the screen. Like you have to remember that.
And it just starts to revive these parts of your brain or something?
And you have to do things like walking on a balance beam, and then, remembering things that they call out, because your recall at everything, at that point for me, not everybody, but at that point for me, had just gotten so bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at that time in your life, you're going through all this. Were you open to speak about it? Like your friend called. Okay, that's what, because I mean, like now you're like, let's have these conversations. Even before we started recording, you were like, it's so important. And so what shifted that? Like,
Yeah, no, I lived in a lot of shame for a
that's
lot of
what
years.
keeps people from talking about stuff.
And I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of the reasons I stopped going out and hanging out with friends is because I felt like I was around all these intellectuals and they were so smart and talking about all these things. And
And you're like, what if I have to read a menu?
exactly. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's where I think also feeling like I was young again. You have those feelings of,
yeah, you were. It's
Yeah.
like this total regression in every way.
every way. And I'm the kind of person that I love to live by grades or, I used to be a people pleaser. So I consider myself an overcoming people pleaser
Yeah,
now.
me too.
So I wanted to live by those standards. And
Right.
I looked at my personal resume and I'm like, I am failing. I mean, I'm like, I'm divorced. I'm a single mom. I'm not drinking anymore. So in my mind, that means I'm not fun. I have this
Right.
learning disability. Who's going to want me like this? I'm never going to find another person in my life,
Man,
Yeah.
yes.
So I was like, I'm failing.
Yeah. And, for me, I don't know, in partnerships and stuff, sometimes I can count on that other person for some kind of, it's like being in a band versus a solo artist. Like you have each other to like lean on and somebody else to bounce things off of and stuff. And then when you're on your own, like it's all you, and I know that I've been in situations like that where I felt like I lost confidence. Did you feel any of that or?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've always thought I was the girl in the room that had no confidence. Like I was the least confident person in the room. And people were always like, well, I'm so surprised you never seem like that. But inside, I always stood in the back. Like when I was younger and I was in choir, I made sure I was always in the back. Yeah, never wanted to be noticed, never wanted to be seen because I just struggled and lacked a lot of confidence. So this took it to a whole other level of just, everything was falling apart and breaking down. And honestly, all of those parts of me needed to die. Like they needed to go. I needed to recreate in myself. And I look at those times now and I'm like, those things needed to happen in my life because I needed to create and be someone new in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and we just don't know the ripple effect that things have. Like maybe that one person that's going to have some sort of major visionary idea just heard you talking about your visual processing disorder and they're like, maybe that's what's wrong. And then
so
now they're
true.
like, this is a thing. And then it opens them up and then who knows?
Exactly.
I mean, like we just don't know.
It's so true. There was a while after that I did start talking about it because I did realize if this can help either other parents and with their children.
Yeah.
Because it is hereditary. I found out my daughter had it, so she went through
I'm
this.
wondering about my my oldest daughter's dad. She's dyslexic, and then he's always had trouble like what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. And it's challenging because you feel inadequate, because you're reading, you can't really comprehend. And honestly, I think a part of me not getting my LPC was so terrified. The reason I got through my master's is because it was all writing. Like I could read and I felt like I really could understand therapy, which was so strange in psychology. And then I could write. I've always been able to write. But thank goodness I didn't have to take any tests. There was 2 classes where I had to take tests over different diagnoses, and those classes I got a B in. All the rest of them I did well. But yeah.
So there was a test involved with getting your LPC?
If I went on to get my LPC, you have to pass state exams and it's 3. I think there's like 3 different types of boards you have to pass, and I wouldn't have been able to pass them. I just wouldn't have.
Wow.
So I think that was probably another reason I didn't. I was like, I got my master's. That's good enough.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Why you were just like, nah. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so true. Like, talking about it, hopefully if other people are having a hard time reading or their child is, that they'll go and you can go to that clinic and you can get a free exam.
Whoa. Wow. That is fascinating. I'm going to have to tell him.
Yeah.
Okay. So what made you start having these conversations, like start opening up about this?
Yeah. Once, I really was in that isolation time. The panic attacks went away, but I started to get social anxiety. And so I didn't even want to go to the grocery store. felt like the world was closing in on
Oh,
me.
it's just, that hurts my heart, you know? I mean, yes, we have to go through these things to get us to where we're going. It's just
Yeah.
tough,
Yeah. Yeah. It
and
was,
you're just so beautiful and wonderful and like doing so much. And it's like, oh no.
yeah. Yeah. It was a tough time.
Will she get through it? But she does.
Well, that was the thing, is that I realized when I was trying to search for I'm like, are there other people that are going through this? How do I find it? I couldn't find anything. And so that's when I asked a friend of mine, do you know Casey McPherson?
Oh, yes, of course. He's got the band Alpha Rev.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a good friend of mine. And I
know
telling
Zach Loy more than him, but yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, he's a good friend of mine, and I was telling him, I said, I think I want to, talk to people about this to understand more. And his mental health journey is quite phenomenal. He was one of my first stories, and he said, yes, you should do this, and you need to video it. And I was like, no way. I'm like, Casey, I'm like, you know me. I'm like, I've never been in front of a camera.
Wow.
And he said, Julie, if people can see other people's faces, it's worth it. And so sure enough, it was just like one door after the other opened, and I'm recording him. And so I just needed that for myself to understand that I wasn't alone in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's why I started doing it. And I had 4 people. And then it was during those videos that I realized that I actually really needed to get a lot of help. I didn't have suicidal ideation, but I also, like, if something would have happened to me, I would have been okay. I mean, I thought that. I was just like, can something just happen to me? And I didn't want to feel that way. And I wanted to be with my children, in a way that I had joy being around them. And so that's when I started diving into therapy, got a therapist. The therapist said to me, Julie, you have a long way to go. And I had to specifically see a trauma specialist. And she said, I think that you need to go to this trauma treatment facility in Nashville. There's one in Nashville. And I was like, F you. I mean,
why did she say that?
Because
were you opening up about past things and that relationship that you had in college or something?
Well, there's a lot more, but there's a lot more when it comes to like trauma and just things that happened early on.
But it was the way you were holding it maybe that struck her, or?
I think it was the fact that I didn't feel like I wanted to be here anymore. Like, once again, I wasn't planning out anything.
Got it.
I just could never do that.
But life didn't seem worth living, so really.
Yeah.
So you were just kind of like.
And going to therapy once a week can help. But she said, I know that, she's like, if you want a really big boost to get you to where you need to be, like feeling like you can function and get a job. And, now that my eye therapy was working out, but I still couldn't be around people. So that's big. That's big. Mm-hmm. She's like, I really think that this would be a safe place for you. It's 8 girls total.
Wow.
And it'll help you start to it's called Integrative Life Center, and it helps you integrate back into life and healing. So I had a kind of come to Jesus moment in the car when I went to go visit my brother in Dallas, and I was on my way back. And I just never knew when it was going to hit me. And all of a sudden I'm crying in the car. I couldn't figure out why. And I was like asking God, I'm like, what more do you want from me? Mm-hmm. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Because I don't get it. And I heard him say, like, I've laid this out for you. When are you going to go?
Wow.
And
did all this have anything to do with why your marriage split up?
No, no. Interestingly, it didn't. Our marriage split up because, there was a small time when we were in love, but I think that we just continued the relationship. Mm-hmm. We had fallen out of love before we probably even got married.
Wow.
And we had kids, and so
you just keep going.
You just keep going. But no, I think that probably both of us have our own, like in any relationship, you both have your own things that you've dealt with in the past. And I think if you have that strong foundation of, that strong core of really that love factor in it, it can help you through that. But I think that if you're more just like, people would even say to us, y'all are like cousins. And I'm like,
not quite brother and sister, but cousins.
Because we never fought. Like,
yeah.
We didn't, I mean, like we got along. We were fun to be around,
Yeah. So what's the problem? Right.
We went to a lot of therapy. I mean, we really, really tried. We did, because we love our,
interesting.
Both adore our children and wanted it to work.
Clearly you liked each other.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah. And we still do. Like, we still talk like we did when we were married. Like, hey, what's up? Just.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And good for your kids.
Yeah. That's a great question though. But no, because most of this came out after the marriage.
Did it surprise you? I mean, were you like, what the fuck?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I would even say that in my prayers. I don't think a lot of people will admit that when they're angry at life, but I was angry, and I was angry at God, like, what are you doing to me here? But honestly, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I ended up going to the trauma treatment facility. And I got to do equine therapy and art therapy and music therapy and heal. And I got back on March 15th, 2020, and lockdown happened March 16th, 2020. And I'm a full-time single mom. I mean, I had my kids, 70% of the time. And for me, the pandemic, it was still a place that I could continue to heal and be with my kids. I didn't have that anxiety anymore. I didn't have those thoughts anymore. Like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So it was the best thing I ever did in my life. And I still continue. It wasn't, I think the thing is a lot of times we think therapy or there's so many different forms now. People are doing ayahuasca, or there's ketamine, and there's so many different things out there.
I've done them all.
But yeah, and I have too. And I work on myself daily, I meditate, do all these things daily. But I think it's still important to have, if you can, some sort of, maybe it doesn't have to be maybe a traditional therapist, and there are so many other forms of therapy, but to have just those people that you can check in with that have an objective perspective, because our friends and family, I mean, it's so great to be able to talk to them and always want to have people you can reach out to. But I won't ever stop seeking or talking with people that can help me in a spiritual way or in a mindful way.
Yeah, me too. I have an Al-Anon sponsor that really she's just, it's a different type of thing, because she's sometimes like, don't talk to your friends about this. They're not going to get it. They've not been in a relationship with an addict, and, the things that can bring up for me. So that's just my path, but it's really been beneficial for me.
Who was an addict in your life?
Oh, my partner, Justin.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, we've
That's
done
powerful.
a lot of podcasts about it and about him. He went to treatment a year and a half ago. And I mean, it's been a road, and it's been interesting in what it's brought up for me and how I lost myself and had my own issues around it, and why I was choosing partners like that, and how I can not lose myself in those moments. Cause I mean, it's a wild ride. So yeah. So having that's been an outlet that has surprised me, but anyway, so it comes in different forms, but I do agree with you.
Yeah.
It just may come in unexpected ways too. Like, she's just such a source of strength when I need it. So.
So I got to talk to Dr. Drew Pinsky, and I asked him, I said, what can we do for people that are addicts, or, how can we be supportive?
Yeah.
And he's like, everyone should go to Al-Anon.
Really? Oh yeah. Well, it's good for if someone's in the AA program too. most likely they've got something in there that's going to relate to Al-Anon because, we've just got unhealthy patterns. And so how do we take care of ourselves?
Yeah. So I think
I'm a big fan of Al-Anon. I like it a lot.
I am too. And because I went to a couple of meetings. I went to AA after I stopped drinking for a year.
Do you drink now or no? Not at all.
It's been a little over 4 years now.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I like having some conversations around that too. That's interesting because I stopped last April. I was just doing it a little bit, but I just was like, well, let me give it a shot. So since I have a sober partner. And so anyway, I'm almost a year in.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
How do you think, have you noticed any changes or was it a hard decision?
It wasn't that hard. It's just in the moment sometimes, but it passes quickly, like that urge or something. And there's such a movement right now with, non-alcoholic spirits and things like that. So, I mean, it couldn't be a better time for it. And, having a sober partner, it's easy and it's modeling it to my kids. There's a lot of good things about it. Just in the moment, sometimes I want a drink. And so anyway, it passes quickly and that's been good. And the payoff has been really good. I mean, mentally, I've been very clear. My intuition is really rocking. And so my skin's doing good. I mean, there's good stuff,
I know, right?
So yeah.
I remember people saying that and I'm like, okay, I'll take the compliment.
Yeah, your skin looks
You're
good.
a woman,
right.
It's like we're women. We want to, okay, we'll take that compliment.
Oh yeah, I'm not ashamed at all.
Not at all.
So it's been good. 4 years. So then I guess through the pandemic, you were just like sober style. I pretty much was too.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to show my kids that. I don't know. They could be like, oh, you have to have a drink. And I'd be like, oh, I don't think that's the right thing to model to them. So I was like, why do I need a drink? Those are good questions to ask.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, 4 years ago when I stopped drinking, I would have never, ever thought that we would live in a society now where I've been to sober parties and not for me.
Right.
It's because they're like, people are deciding to stop drinking. And I'm just like, I think it's amazing,
But it makes you go, am I creating my own reality? Like, what? Did I create this universe and reality? Yeah. So anyway, so that's really cool. Thank you for that side note because it really does have an impact on your mental health. The one thing I do notice too is that even if I had a drink like on a Saturday or something, there was a residual impact in the week. And so if you're only having 1 or 2 drinks, I think it's interesting to do an experiment, if anybody's listening to this, and see like how you feel during the week, like Thursday or Wednesday or whatever. Do you feel depressed and like you can't handle life? What if you cut that out? Would that go away? And I would say I feel like that a lot less. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think too, as we get older, it's harder for our bodies to process alcohol and then our sleep and just everything can, we went from
sleep. I mean, sleep.
Enough said.
It's a fact that it affects your sleep and your sleep cycles. So, I mean, come on.
Well, it's interesting too, because some of my advisors will meet at Austin Land and Cattle and they're having their cocktails or whatever. And they love it. I always order a Topo Chico and a champagne glass.
I love it.
And they're like, I love that so much that you order that.
That's all you have to do. The glass makes such a difference. I say that like at bars and stuff. I'm like, give me like something fizzy, maybe put a splash of ginger ale in there and like put it in a cool glass. And it just does something.
It does. I know.
Or put it in a wine glass. I'll put it in a wine glass.
Yeah, I definitely have to be specific about the glass because there's been a couple of times, my friends will order cocktails and I'll say, I just want a soda water and ice.
Right.
And then mine will come out in a tea glass.
Right.
No.
Get with the program.
So now I have to say,
with the crowd.
I want a soda water in a cocktail glass.
Like in a highball. Yes. Like make it look nice.
Yeah.
Put some effort into it. It's not hard. No, I'm right with you. It's a great hack. So, all right. So now let's see. I feel like we're traveling through your life. So we're in the pandemic and stuff. So when you were starting Mend at that point, was that what the videos were that you were doing with Casey?
So, I did the 4 and then I paused to go to trauma treatment and then pandemic happened. So as soon as it started opening back up, excuse me.
All right.
As soon as the world kind of started opening back up, I got my first person on there and I was just like, let's go. Let's start doing these stories again. And I knew I was ready. you know, I always like to be an authentic person. And I'd lived my life not realizing I wasn't, that I was masking all of this for so long.
Isn't that weird when you all of a sudden go like, oh, yeah. And like you find these spaces where you're not being authentic at all. And you're like, wow, either I don't know if I'm lying to myself or I'm just living in denial or what.
Yes. Well, and it's like, you don't mean to. You don't even know what's happening until you do one day. And so it was a blessing that it not only happened for myself, but for the company, because when I started those videos, I hadn't gotten help. And here I'm saying,
right,
let's get help.
Right. You got to walk that walk.
Got to walk the walk for sure.
I mean, I think it's so crucial when you're doing something like this, especially when you're in the wellness industry whatsoever. Like, are you really walking the walk and showing up as it? Like, I feel a responsibility doing these podcasts. Like, I can't just listen to the things you say and then go get fucked up and, blow off my sleep and my habits and all that. Like, that's going to show that people don't know how they know. Like, they could look at your company and be like, something feels off. Like, you know, you've got to really be it.
It's so true. And I've looked at a couple of mental health companies, just like some people will send it my way. And I've thought that because now it's all the rage, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, something doesn't feel authentic about that. So yeah. So when I came back and I started doing the videos, I felt really true to myself in what I was creating.
That's beautiful, right?
And I knew, like, after hearing what people were going through in the pandemic, and I had already been through this isolation period of my life, I knew it wasn't going to be good.
Yeah.
It's tough. And it's not going to be good if you're an introvert and you don't mind being inside, because you still need some activity. And it's definitely not going to be good for the extroverts who have to be inside all day long when that's what they need is outside interaction.
Right.
So started the stories, started Mend, did a couple of events. And then I met a mentor of mine, and, he said to me, Julie, I think that this could be a for-profit company. And
well, at that time, what was it? Just telling stories or something? Or
it was
like providing a space to hear others going through it.
Yeah, providing a space to hear others going through it and the resources they used, and to make that a nonprofit. But it was interesting because I never really wanted to be a nonprofit, but I didn't realize you could have a company for good and be a for-profit. And I want this to be globally recognized one day,
Yeah.
And that it's really hard to do that in a nonprofit sector. So I changed everything, changed the name, made it a for-profit company.
I can't believe speakasone.com wasn't taken.
I know.
Right? It was just waiting for you.
I know.
Like, no, that's a good name.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
I know. I remember when I found out how much I had to pay for that name, and I was like putting my own money in the company, and I was like, that's a lot of money for that name, but I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it's available.
I remember I could have gotten like a .net or something, and it would have been cheaper. And I'm like, nope, it's got to be a .com.
You've got to have the .com.
Got to have the .com.
Let's be real. Well, so when did the subscription boxes, is that kind of what, once you evolved into that, for profit structure, then you were like, how can we support people and what would be the best thing?
Yeah, kind of. My heart was never in this for making money. I would have done it for free. And it took me a long time to get that money hat on, which is important, right? Investors don't want to invest in people who are like, I'm not in this for the money.
Yeah.
So it had to come about naturally. It's not something that I could force. And so we talked about some different ideas, and nothing felt right. Thought about working with another company, and I was just like, no. And then one day my daughter got a subscription of clothes, and I could never figure out what to buy her, like just possible to buy for her when it came to clothing. And she got this box of clothing, and I was like, yes, that's it. And when I was going through that time, I would have given anything to have something like this, or something was just sent to my door, because when things are overwhelming in your life, it's hard to put all the pieces together of everything that you need. And when you're going to therapy once a week, sometimes you can forget what you need to do throughout the week. So this is just the perfect way of being able to have these tools every month that we can supply for people in order to support their mental health. And it's not like you need to be going through something as severe as I went through either. My messaging around mental health is just like our physical health, where we work out our bodies. We have a mental health, and we got to work out our minds. So if you can also get these things as a preventative measure, it helps you before you go through something that's so severe. Like, of course, in life, we're going to have situations that affect us. And do we have the tools and resources to get through them without hitting rock bottom? And then, so that's...
and it costs a fraction of one visit to a therapist.
Yeah. It's
$49.99.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you think about it like that, like, okay, what if I just invested this in my mental health? Okay, maybe even money's tight for you. You know, it's still $50. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me.
You know what's so interesting is I have spent a lot of money on my mental health. And sometimes I'm like, where did the money come from? Because technically I don't feel like I should be able to have afforded it, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that the universe, when you start supporting yourself and you start taking care of yourself, the universe has a way of supporting you. And I do believe that, because the things I've had to spend money on, doesn't feel like I should have had that money. And I'm not saying it came out of nowhere or whatever, but you start to figure out ways, and you start to realize, well, maybe I don't need that.
Yeah.
But I need this.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. I feel like we had a great price point. And what's also really cool is that we're working with organizations and universities now. We're working with Texas State University on February 22nd with their athletic program. The basketball game is going to be dedicated to mental health.
Whoa.
And we got to interview the basketball players and the coaches, raising awareness around these young athletes and what they're going through, because unfortunately there's been way too many deaths by suicide this past year with college athletes. So raising awareness around that. And then we created this athlete box. So we're going to have the stories on the Jumbotron during the timeouts and the half times. And then we'll also be providing the athlete box.
I wondered.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So there's a special athlete box?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do
Cool.
with specialized boxes. So that's for the university. We're working with Cops for Charity here in Austin.
Oh, cool.
And we created
So you had Art Acevedo on.
Yes. Yeah, he's great.
He's great.
Yeah, and really that box came out of his story. After we talked, I was like, there needs to be a box created out of you and everything that you just said, and the items you use. And that's another thing is with these stories, is if it makes sense, like, what do you use and how can we create box out of some of these things. Like for him, it was the boating balls, and he always kept a medallion, and he kept a journal where he would write about the really great things that happened in his life, because as a police officer, they see, daily, they see so much darkness.
Yeah.
So for him, it's writing about the things in life that brought him joy and happiness.
Wow.
So I was like, yes, these are things we can put in a box and create this for law enforcement and first responders. So working with Cops for Charity, looking to do an event with them on May 18th, which is National Police Week. And and have a couple other, companies that we're hopefully going to be working with during South by that I would love to say, but we don't know yet.
Cool. No, that's really incredible. Is there anything else like this? Because I haven't really I've heard of other subscription boxes, but I haven't heard one specifically geared like this.
So there are a couple other mental health subscription boxes. One of them is only for women, a more wellness category.
I take it there's no wine in that. Because you really do think a bottle of wine, But,
no. And then the other one is, they're more around mental health. I would say what separates us is that we are trying to create an experience. We'll have the stories from people that they can listen to, like a QR code to go listen to the stories.
Oh, cool.
Also, every month we want to highlight a new form of therapy. So we'll have that as a video, and that way people can say, okay, this month is CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, or, what is equine therapy? And that way people know that there's so many options for them.
I was just reading about neurofeedback and Body Keeps the Score, and I was like, sounds incredible. Like, I started looking up neurofeedback practitioners in Austin, and
exactly. I want to talk to them all.
I didn't even realize that was a thing. And like, if we see how our brain is functioning, we can actually make it function better. What?
Yes.
So,
I know, exactly. So that's where our box is just different in a sense.
I like that.
And every box comes with a letter from a licensed psychotherapist that's on our advisory board. Our first one's from Babita Spinelli, and she writes, why these items are important, how they can support your mental health. And this month we're doing a breathing technique. So it's the items are really meant to just add value to your life, and they're meant to be done in simple ways. So if there is a aromatherapy steam shower, which people would consider more wellness, but there's a lot that people don't know about aromatherapy and how it can support your mental health. And when you're in the shower, if you can do those breathing techniques, then you're just enhancing your day, and it doesn't take that long. And I think sometimes we get the idea of meditation needs to be 30 minutes every day. And that's great in a perfect world.
I don't do it 30 minutes a day.
Sometimes we only have the shower.
That's right. That's right.
And the aromatherapy and what that can bring to you.
That's good. I'm glad you brought that up, because I talk a lot about that on this show. And in my courses is that it doesn't have to take a ton of time. It's just is about the diligence of doing it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money either. So those are things that you can do to better your mental health without a big price tag, without a lot of time.
Exactly.
So,
And if you can try and do it every day, great. And if you can't, that's okay.
I say more often than not.
Exactly.
Do it more often than you don't. And if you find yourself, oh shit, this whole week's gone by and I haven't done X, then that's a moment to assess. How do I feel? Oh shit, everything's stressing me out, Then you're like, okay, well, there you go. Let me try and do this. I actually had that just happen to me. I've been trying to work out more with this. I told you I'm doing pull-ups, this pull-up thing with Angela Gargano. And so fitting that in my day, I was like missing my meditation. And suddenly, like by the weekend, I was like fighting with Justin and, not myself. And I was like, oh, I haven't meditated all week. Now, how do I reprioritize where I'm fitting that in and making it work? And like today I haven't yet. And here's my meditation pillar right behind it. And I'm like, okay, that is priority one when we're done with this, So it's a trip to really like start to look at your life and like what you're prioritizing for your own mental health.
Yeah. And you nailed it. That's the thing is, when a lot of the messaging nowadays can be these morning routines, which I love, and I have one. I do, but I also can't always have one. Like now my son's starting basketball at 7 a.m. And I'm sorry, sleep is important. So I can't get up at 4 a.m. I can do the 5 a.m. And it's like, okay, now I've learned I have to put these into my day at different times. And when can I do that? And that's okay,
Yeah. Because I think paying attention to those mental conversations we're having with ourselves and what you're saying to yourself is crucial too. Yeah. Like, are you beating yourself up because you didn't, or are you able to give yourself grace around it and be like, you're going to do great tomorrow. And you know what, your priorities. So.
Right. And because I used to be a person that thought it had to like be all or nothing. I really celebrate the wins.
Me too. I had this list, and if I didn't get to it, I would beat myself up. And so, like shifting that into celebrating the wins and giving yourself grace around the times that you don't, because you're human.
Exactly.
Because we are humans.
We are humans. We are. And life happens. Yeah. I last year, just everything became so, work just was so much more than I'd ever experienced before, and I completely stopped working out, which was not good for my mental health. I
was about to ask you how being an entrepreneur has affected your mental health journey. So that seems like a prime example.
Yeah, it's funny because a couple of people I've talked to, I think that like since you went through all of that, do you feel like your mental health is stable? I'm like, oh yeah, like being an entrepreneur has nothing on that time. Like that was so awful, and I won't ever go back. I'm done, and I do a lot of, and I don't want to say never say never, right?
Right.
But I've had to learn to really make mental health my priority. It makes me a better entrepreneur, makes me a better mother. So working out for me now looks like, okay, I can't go to yoga because that takes an hour and a half. what can I do? So I got this app. It's called Future, and it has this. And I don't do apps. This is really funny that I'm like telling you about an app right now. And they have these personal trainers on there. And I told her, I said, I just can't do an hour or 45 minutes, and I barely have 30. And she's like, 30 is great. And so she's like, I'll set you up 7 workouts for the week. I like to do yoga twice, run/walk twice, and then 3 days of strength training. And if I can get to 5, that's awesome.
So
like
total success.
Total success. And it's 30 minutes. And if I have to do like what you said, if I have to do it at 2:00 in the afternoon, then that's okay. And because there's somebody holding me accountable, because I just got to where work was overriding and I wouldn't even think about it. And then it's the end of the day, or not end of the day, but it's 3:30. I have to get the kids. Then they have all their things they're going to. Then I'm trying to work while they're at dance or this or that. And, and then I'm home and I'm doing dinner and then the day's over. And so I try to do it in the morning and if I can, but once again, I just try to really celebrate. I can't say that enough because I was a person that used to hate on the way I did everything. I just thought I was, how do I say this? My inner critic tore me apart daily. And now I'm like, hey, good for you. Like you only got through 15 minutes of yoga because something came up. Who cares? Great. You're moving. and it's okay. Life's not going to fall apart, but just making sure if I can get in a 30-minute workout, if I can get in.
What does celebrating look like for you? Is it just a matter of like saying good job to yourself?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I ask because I have this, I'm really diligently using my full focus planner, which is a goal setting planner. And in it, like you set your goals and then you say, he says, how will you reward yourself or celebrate? And I was like, gosh, I've done lots of different goals before and I haven't had a way to celebrate. And I think just it's interesting to set yourself up in that mindset, even if it's like these little daily wins or if it's something bigger like a goal achievement. And how do you reward yourself? And it's not with a drink. And it's not like I had to think, okay, if I'm not eating or drinking anything to reward myself or buying myself something, then what am I doing? And I had to come up with some creative.
Like one of the ways I'll reward myself is taking a bath.
Oh, that's a good one.
But I mean, it's like if, I don't know if it has to be, because sometimes my anxiety, it'll come back. It's not the way it used to be at all. But if I had an overwhelming day, my body will get cold and I have to go get recentered. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs don't do this, but I'm like, I have to go sit in the bath for 5 minutes. And I'll do that. And I'm like, I'm celebrating you right now. Like, good job for taking care of yourself. And I get out and then I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's okay that I have to do that.
Yes, it is okay. Of course it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think there's like that underlying theme of it's okay to take care of your own needs. Sometimes we don't even know what those are. The Julie from 6 years ago would have been like, wait, what?
Yeah, I would have just worked through it and then I would have,
Drank.
I would have drank and then more panic would have come in and then I wouldn't have been able to, I would have been stopped in my tracks because I couldn't function. And, so it's like, hey, taking a 5-minute bath.
Yeah. My baths are never 5 minutes, but I applaud that you can make a bath last.
I only do the 5 minutes if it's like like I said, if it's kind of in the middle of the day and I need to reset.
That's so interesting. Good for you.
But longer ones at night for sure.
Yeah. Good for you. That's really cool. And just recognizing that too. So
yeah,
really incredible. So, well, how's been the response to these subscription boxes? Because they look really good. I'm looking at the athlete one right now. You've got an emotional first aid kit in here. You've got something.
One of them is
colorful.
One of them is
slime.
Oh yeah. So those are just ways that they can, a lot of times after talking to these coaches, we hear that some of their anxieties can come out in ways for these athletes that, I don't know if I should say this on here, but, just ways that, what's the word I'm looking for, that don't serve them.
Sure.
And to be able to have something that they can just kind of like put their hands on and get that energy out. That might feel really almost kind of that angry energy in a
Like
way
cathartic
that,
or something.
yeah, in a way that, can serve them and help them move through those emotions in just a more, I don't want to say positive, just in a way that works.
Yeah, and that's cool because you're giving them a tool, basically.
Giving them a
It's like a
tool.
little toolkit.
There's one that in there that's 1,000 questions about me. The reason we have that in there, and it's so great because Dante, he's the assistant coach at Texas State. He's like, we'll just randomly ask these questions to the boys. And the reasoning behind that is that, athletes can get stuck in this mindset from what I'm learning is that that's who they are, right? They're an athlete.
100%.
That's it.
Yep. I live with one.
Yeah.
And like, he's sort of in this process of like, do I continue my MMA career? And that's so much of my identity, So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And to let them know that there's so much more
Right.
of who you are. And that people want to celebrate that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
beautiful. And that's important, really important. So, yeah. All right. Well, this is incredible. I feel like we covered a lot. Is there anything that we missed that we need to talk about?
No, I think you know my whole life story.
I think I do. I know a lot about you. What has surprised you the most about this road and to speak as one and the boxes and everything?
What has surprised me the most, this can make me a little bit emotional, is the support.
Really?
Yeah. I met that one mentor I spoke of, and he's introduced me to some amazing people. And I have this group of advisors where I look at their resumes and I'm like, I can't believe you're here with me to help me through this. A lot of them are men. I have a couple of women, but I feel like they're these just like amazing angel big brothers that care, and they care about mental health, and that's been really eye-opening. And I've had just so many. I felt really alone in this journey when I started Mend, and I was doing this alone for so long that once I started to get that support of mentors and advisors, and now I have a couple of people working for me, it wouldn't happen without them. You got to have those people that bring what you can't to the table. Like I can't do a spreadsheet, just can't.
I don't think your visual thing would even allow that. No way.
No, exactly. I mean, it is like,
yeah.
So to have those, creatives and my videographer, Jay, does so much, and Brittany, she put together this amazing trigger, and just so much more that they do. I feel a lot of support. And what has amazed me is I've been able to, I've grown so much mentally through this as well. And I think about seeing my son as a basketball player, and as I'm talking to these athletes, I look at them and I look at how they lose games all the time, or they're not scoring, or they're not doing this, and how they keep going. And I think of that. I'm like, you just keep going and you do it every day. And then you have your people that you reach out to and that you can cry to. And in the beginning, I would tell my mentor, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, nobody does. Just keep going.
And you show up for the next game.
You just keep going. And he's right. A lot of times people start these things and they don't know, and it'll change and it'll progress, and you just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bet you've just had so many people, like, once you started telling your story, they're like, oh yeah, me too, and
oh, I can't even believe it. And sometimes
I'm sure
I won't even think about it. Just one lady, she was asking me how I deal with Christmas, and she didn't know I didn't drink. And so, she was asking, she's like, oh, do you just like drink a lot at Christmas? Because that's what I do. And because she's talking about being around her family. And I was like, well, no, I was like, I don't drink anymore. And she said, you don't? And I said, no. And she's like, tell me more about that. And I told her, and I just,
just
answered her questions.
Yeah.
And I saw that lady about 5 months after that, and she said, I stopped drinking.
That gave me chills, like a little, because it's those moments, like, you're like, I just impacted lives that I don't even know. Like, who knows what other lives like in there,
I told one lady about trauma treatment. She knew of a young girl that was going through some things. she connected us, and that girl ended up going to the same program I went to, I think like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just sharing. It's just being open.
Sharing. I know. And I know it's a process to get there for anyone listening. Like, I know it's a process through shame and all that. I mean, I've covered up for the addict and done those things. And like, it's a process in your own healing to get to the place that you can live without shame, you know? Like, I used that as an example because that's some of the last stuff that, you know, I'm a pretty open person. So I talk about a lot on my podcast. So those are still some things that, like, you know, are still a process for me opening up. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And, you know, we have nothing to be shameful for.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you're providing goodness in the world and doing the best you can, you find those people that you can talk to about it. Because the more we talk about it, then it breaks that shame cycle. Just keep talking about it.
Yeah. Keep talking about it and keep going.
And keep going.
Yeah. And just a quick shout to, for anybody listening, the terminology about suicide is died by suicide, not committed suicide. So I've learned that through my work with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense. And so you use that same term. So I just wanted to shout that out in case anybody heard it. That's a really great shift to make in your own verbiage.
Yeah, it really is. And it's, you know, once again, it's okay if you mess up because it's been said for so long. But yeah,
I like that change.
I do too. I do too. And, you know, the numbers aren't going down. So we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. So ready to see those numbers go down, and you're doing your part to make sure that they do. So that is a beautiful thing.
Because now I want to talk to you more about Moms Demand Action.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Anytime. So, you know, cause there's a lot of mental health issues tied up, with that. So anyway.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you, Julie. And let's cover how everybody can find you. We already said speakasone.com.
Yes.
How easy is that?
Yeah.
And how else can everyone find and subscribe?
We're on YouTube. So go to our YouTube channel, Speak as One, subscribe. Our Instagram is Speak as One Community. And then, Facebook is Speak as One. The only one that's different is our Instagram, which is Speak as One Community.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. Well, links to everything will be in the show notes. And can anyone follow you personally as well? Or do you have any social media?
You know,
are you all?
I do, but I don't post on there. It took me a long time to get, put myself out there on social media.
After hearing your story, that kind of doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So my personal page I haven't posted on it in so long, but
it's all Speak as One.
I am on Speak as One. Yeah.
Yes, that's the best place to find you. Great. That's what I'll put in here, and everybody can check out the boxes. And I don't know, just, you know, even just thinking about it really puts that energy out there, and it helps keep opening us all up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your honesty and the way that you are sharing your story, because it's very powerful, and all that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
really
you so
cool.
much.
I'm so glad we got to connect. Thank you.
Too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to you for showing up today. I heard a lot that really interested me today, and I hope you did too. And maybe somebody popped in your head. And I'm always encouraging you guys listening to share these with a friend if it comes up, because I believe that those things come up to us for a reason. And those people might hear something in here that they need to hear. I don't know. I just think we're divinely led. You know, I get woo-woo about those things. So you never know. Follow those instincts. And the more we follow them, the more we trust them. And the more that we just keep opening up to all the magic and good stuff. I'm off on a tangent, but that's okay. So thank you so much to Julie today. Thank you to you for being here. Remember that you can subscribe to the show, leave a rating, review. Those all matter and help us keep growing. And also you can subscribe to the newsletter at amyedwards.com. And my new courses are out. So you can get my free course, The Ageless Mindset, Look Younger and Feel Happier in Less Than an Hour. And of course, my youthfulness hack, which is like what we were talking about today. It's all these things that we can show up for and do without a lot of money, without a lot of time, and they will better your mental health. And it's all this inside job, just like Julie was talking about today. It's living as best we can in here and getting aware of ourselves and getting in touch with ourselves and all the things we need. So anyway, I love you so much. Thank you to our guest, Julie, today. Check out Speak as One, and thank you to you. Till next time. This has been the Amy Edwards Show from Overcome Studios. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. And thank you so much for being here. Sign up for our newsletter at amyedwards.com.